So good morning. Can I check the sound again? If it changed anything, it's good. All right. And a good day for those who are joining through the invisible electrons and the web. So very happy to be here. I feel like I haven't been here for a while, so it just really evoke a sense of a coming home. And so good to be with you all this morning. So I brought a teaching today that's inspired by a sutta. This is called the simile of the elephant's footprint. Some of you may know this, and those of you who are interested in reading suttas might have come across this. And this particular simile, elephant's footprint, this teaching is deeply connected with the teachings of the Four Noble Truths. And I'll say more about this particular teaching. And the Four Noble Truths is something that taught across many different Buddhist traditions, quite well known. And the perspectives that I will be drawing from for this teaching will come from something that's inspired by this particular simile and by this particular teaching, and as well as some of my ongoing reflections. So the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, I'll just briefly mention it, and then we'll dive in a little more. And so this is, there are four truths, maybe ennobling truth. And I personally feel a little shy saying the word truth because it evokes many different associations with it that may or may not be helpful. But I like sometimes the translation of it, Sakha, the Pali word, and also means real, something that's real, that we can feel tangibly in our own lives, our own experience. And so the first thing that's real, called the truth, is the noble truth of dukkha. Translation of dukkha might be suffering, stress, and this is where the challenges starts. Often in our culture, we don't like it. So, it's easy to skip over very quickly from the first one. But it continues, and that there is also the origin or the cause of dukkha, and that is craving, grasping, clinging. And there is the end of dukkha, which is the craving. The very craving can end. Grasping can end. And so it gets better. But we sometimes don't listen long enough to get to. And there is a practice path that allows us to cultivate our own hearts and minds, that allows the fruit of ending dukkha to come forth. So it does get better as this teaching unfolds. And this is a rather significant teaching, and that the insights into this Four Noble Truths is what liberated Gautama, for Gautama to become the Buddha. And so it's insights into these four things that are real in our lives that brought liberation for the Buddha. And the tradition sometimes holds that this is the first teaching the Buddha offered. And some of you may know this. This is the teachings on setting in motion the Dharma wheel. And so the teachings began to turn from the very first teaching that the Buddha offered, and it began to roll on and on and on all the way to today, this point. And so it's the first turning of the Dharma wheel, and this is the teaching the Buddha offered, which is the Four Noble Truths and the insights, the 12 insights that arose through the practice. And yet, the teaching can often be overlooked, and then practitioners sometimes can feel that I got it, I know this, and in kind of a culture, maybe modern culture, that we're not always so friendly to pain and distress, and so we can be conditioned to quickly skip over the teaching, and it's just kind of turning away from it. And so our relationship to this teaching can be on the surface level. And Ajahn Sucitto said this Four Noble Truth teaching is an advanced teaching. It calls forth our attention, our curiosity, our interest in this. In the first turning of the Dhamma wheel, the Buddha, before he taught, he contemplated. He thought, who should I teach first? And it occurred to him, he couldn't just go on the street and tell anyone, look, this is what I'm going to teach you. And he actually reflected. He thought, maybe it's this. He was practicing with the 5 ascetic practitioners for a long time. His ascetic companions who had practiced with him in various ways in the spiritual training, spiritual practice, before the Buddha went on his own and all the way led to his awakening. So he thought, and this is a group of people who may have little dusts in their eyes. You may have heard this phrase. And that maybe I should begin with them. So he went about and found this 5 ascetic practitioners, ascetic companions, and offered the teaching of the Four Noble Truths and the 12 insights to them. And we're very fortunate. In the course of unfolding this particular teaching, one of the 5 got it. So this is Venerable Kondanya. So the sutta said, he opened the Dharma eyes. He saw it. He felt it. And the Buddha felt it. He got it. Wow. So the Buddha got really fired up. He said, wow, okay. Someone will understand this. And so he went on, started teaching the remaining 4, and he just kind of kept on going. And right from there, it launched his 40 plus years of teaching career. And I feel very fortunate, and this is the beginning of a forming of the Sangha, beginning of forming of the long teaching endeavor that the Buddha launched in, and then we are the beneficiaries of this first turning. And sometimes I would imagine, what if none of them got it? What would happen? So I didn't let myself thinking about that too much, but so here we are. So I feel very fortunate. And then what I was also struck is in the Parinibbana Sutta, which is a long sutta that documented the last days of the Buddha's life. And here, the Buddha again highlighted the teachings of the Four Noble Truths. And I want to read a little from this. And then he said, practitioners, due to not understanding and not penetrating the Four Noble Truths, both you and I have wandered and transmigrated for such a very long time. I feel so tender just listen to this. He knew. And he didn't say just you. He's you and I. You and I, because we didn't understood this Four Noble Truths and it really penetrated it. That we wandered and transmigrated for such a long time. It really touches me to hear this. And I notice also the words that are used, and that is not understanding and not penetrating it. And so this is not this kind of a surface level, we just got it, we read it somewhere and we just, okay, now I'm done with that. But it's penetrating it. Penetrating it have a flavor of kind of, there's a fullness of human life knowing this, not just in our intellect. And I've been reading this book by Philip Moffitt called Dancing with Life, the Four Noble Truths and then 12 Insights teaching. And so here he says in this book, the Four Noble Truths is not just a summary guideline, a creed, or a statement of a philosophy, but an actual practice of insight and a realization in and of itself. It's a teaching on how to live wisely. That's quite something. How to live wisely through this. Is this something real? It's in our lives. So I am personally affected by my Dharma teachers, my teachers, and maybe their teachers in how they have spent decades reflecting, articulating, practicing with this teaching. And I know for Gil Fransdal, for probably decades in IMC, the first teaching of the new year is the Four Noble Truths teaching. Some of you may know this, may be aware of this. Every year, New Year, the first talk the Gil gives is around the Four Noble Truths. And it's never the same. Philip Moffitt, who wrote this book, Dancing with Life, he would tell us that he spent years to write this book because he had to practice with it, he had to reflect it, contemplate it a lot. And it's an ongoing process to this date. And so for me, I dedicated my life this year around the Four Noble Truths. So you're kind of receiving a little bit of vibe through my own reflection and contemplation and practicing with it. And I have to say, confess that I haven't gone very far in this whole process. I feel like I'm kind of repeatedly going from the basics. And I feel like I'm not in a big rush, and I really enjoy the process of it. And so today I hope this also evokes some curiosity in you. So I want to go back to this simile of the elephant footprint. And so this sutta, the teaching was offered by the Buddha's great disciple, one of the chief disciples, Sariputa. And he offered a very detailed elaboration of the Four Noble Truths. And he started this with a very powerful simile. So this is what it says. The footprints of all creatures that walk can fit inside an elephant's footprint. So, an elephant's footprint is said to be the biggest of them all. In the same way, all skillful or wholesome qualities are included in the Four Noble Truths. For me, often in the similes, I like to just stop, kind of imagine a little bit. What does it feel like? What evokes in me? And so I paused and just thought a little bit, about all the animals I can think of that walk. How big their footprints are. And I realized this feels right. The elephant footprint is probably the biggest that can hold it all. And so in this way, the Four Noble Truth teaching has a flavor of encompassing. It's all encompassing in some way. And sometimes you may hear teachers would say, like, Buddha's teachings can all fit in the Four Noble Truth teaching. And the Buddha taught dukkha and dukkha. And that's the shorthand. But this particular statement is a little different from that particular pointing. And here Sariputa said this that is very specific. And he said, all wholesome qualities are included in the Four Noble Truths. The Pali term is a kusala, sometimes also translated as skillful qualities. So all skillful, wholesome qualities are included here. That's very specific. And it's, for me, it's intriguing. It's intriguing. It caught my attention when I read this. And it's somewhat ironic because often our associations with the Four Noble Truths teaching is a little bit kind of grim, a little bit like, you had to kind of grind our teeth or something. But here it says all wholesome qualities are here, are included in this. I just loved it. That caught my attention to kind of keep going. What is he pointing to? And I thought that's a fantastic way and wonderful way to begin this teaching. So how do we understand this? And Sariputa is quite an kind of amazing teacher. And so he unpacked this in a great detail for the rest of the sutta. And I'll also say a little bit about Sariputa, maybe that'll help us understand how he was unpacking this teaching. He's quite a unique teacher, a unique practitioner. He has a very unique mind, quite detail-oriented, and has maybe I'll just read this, that Ajahn Sujato, who commented on this sutta, spoke about Sariputa's quality and his contribution in teaching the Dhamma at the times of the Buddha. and maybe all the way down to today. So he said this sutta is a master class on the methods employed by the Buddha's greatest student, Sariputa. He begins with the Four Noble Truths, then proceeds to unpack them systematically, leading to a lengthy analysis of the four elements. But the unpacking takes surprising directions as Sariputa draws on unexpected layers of the Dhamma to illustrate a familiar teaching in new ways. All the while, he conveys warmth and compassion, illustrating in his manner of teaching the connection that is also the topic of the teaching. Sariputa's emphasis on Four Noble Truths is shown elsewhere as well, where he's said to focus on teaching new students as far as stream entry. The current sutta illustrates how he did this, carefully explaining fundamental concepts and showing their real-world impacts while offering pragmatic and reassuring advice along the way. He introduces all the major wisdom teachings, demonstrating exactly how they fit into the Four Noble Truths. That's quite some skill, isn't it? And I really appreciate the Sariputa quite a lot. And he seems to have a capacity to kind of, in a way, flip the ladder down all the way to the ground. So we can kind of go this step by step to kind of understand the teachings. And so sometimes his teachings are not necessarily exactly the same as the Buddha's, but the Buddha often praised him. Because he has this kind of capacity to allow people to know. And maybe sometimes the teachings are offered as kind of a dropping breadcrumbs, but you can't quite feel the whole thing. And then the Sariputta has this capacity to really let you see the whole thing in the whole picture, and then also know the details in some way. So how did he unfold this? So he started with the overarching teaching, the noble truth of suffering, the origin of the suffering, the cessation of the suffering, and the practice that leads to the cessation of the suffering. But then he didn't just stop there. He went deeper. And he drilled down by teasing apart this higher level concepts, ideas, into a more and more granular and immediately felt kind of experience. So, for example, he first explained, kind of teased apart, what does it mean by dukkha? What is it? So he kind of unpacked that with a list. There's illness, aging, death, and there is association with the things that we don't like, we don't want, and not getting what we really liked. And so there's all this unpacking he was doing. So we can begin to relate to this for ourselves. Yeah, that's right. But again, he didn't stop right there, because that is still at the conceptual level that we're understanding. And so he unpacked all the way to the immediacy of the felt sense of experience, which the teachings sometimes pointed to as the element. The elemental nature of our experience, that this embodied experience has the earth element, kind of our bones, our teeth, that is solid, firm, steady, and there are water element, that the fluidity of it. And so it's dropping down to the immediate felt sense experience. And so you can see that the ladders got flipped down. So now he's talking about this dukkha not at our thinking level, but it's our experiential level. That the experience is like this. Sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's unpleasant. And so for me, sitting here, I have a fair amount of tightness and tension around my hip. And there's some pain that's been there for a while. And that's immediate. Here, oh, this is how it feels like. And for me, this is rather game-changing, that we are beginning to deepen in this process of a penetrating. And Sariputa invited us to drop in our experience here and now. And this is where the wholesome qualities began to emerge. And so in this process, it almost feels like Sariputa was taking the students on a meditative journey. Now you're feeling and sensing in your immediate experience. And several effects began to emerge in this process. And this is my own reflection, maybe departing a little bit from the sutta, that the first one I wanted to point out, the first wholesome qualities that many of us might begin to feel as we drop into the immediacy of our experience is that we are in a raw, direct relationship with our lives. The vibrations in the body, the flow of the breath, the tinkling sensations, the vibrations of the sounds. What you're feeling is a kind of aliveness. Wow. Sometimes I have this feeling, it's like, oh, I'm in this really alive feeling with my own life. Just now as we were sitting, that was the sound of the fan, air conditioning, and sound of the people moving, sound of the breath, and the inner sound. At this kind of soundscape, it just feels like the vibratory feeling of life. And that's enlivening. I don't even know what are all the words that we might describe, but there is a certain kind of wholesome quality when we're in the immediacy of our experience. And what it can contrast is our ongoing movements of wanting, not wanting, pushing away. That actually is deadening. We can begin to know this for ourselves. So the first wholesome quality that the Sariputa is pointing out in my own experience is when we're dropping in this experience, and instead of trying to push away, deny, avoid all the pain we have, and then trying to get on to the things that we really want, there is aliveness that comes forth. Maybe in the midst of the difficulties, in the midst of the pain, there can be aliveness, and it's meaningful. It may not be a meaning that you even know what the words to say about it, but you can feel, well, this is a meaningful way of relating to our lives. And then the second quality is, as we began to stay with this experience just as it is in this raw form, in this more direct form. And what Sariputa was pointing out was that more and more clarity began to emerge. We can begin to see how the experience of pleasant and unpleasant is different from our reactivity to the pleasant or the unpleasant. They're not the same thing. Sometimes when we're not seeing this clearly, they just kind of lumped together as a jumble, or like it's automatic and not good. But what we can see is, oh, pleasant is just a pleasant. And our judgment of whether this is good or bad is another thing, is a separate thing. They don't have to automatically connect. And our identification with it is yet another thing. You know, maybe someone criticized you. I was criticized last week or two, and it was unpleasant. And I won't say it's pleasant, it's unpleasant. But our often the knee-jerking reaction of I need to defend myself would just come up, right? But in that moment, fortunately, I did not have, I wasn't present for it. I just let myself feel the unpleasant. And that wasn't a kind of this reactivity coming up. And what allowed for me is to notice, oh, there is more to this criticism than what it sounds like. It was very intuitive in my system. I didn't even know what it was. You know, I just felt like, oh, there's more to this. And so I paused. I didn't respond, I didn't react, and I just kind of let it go. And there was a space for it. And a while later, maybe hours later, I discovered, and the person was going through some real challenging diagnosis. And so this capacity to be able to drop in this felt sense experiential way gives us opportunity to tease this apart. So here is something, ouch, you know, it's a dukkha. And here is a reactivity. And in this reactivity of a judging, trying to fix this, we actually have choice if we're not flowing with our reactivity. And we can say, oh, I can let this go. I don't need to flow with my judgment that I am a big failure. That's just extra. So that's another quality of a wholesome quality that can flow from this. And then, yet another wholesome quality can emerge in this process. And that is, as we begin to notice that more and more, that there is this choice in us that can let go of the grasping, the clinging, the judging, the fixing, there is actually more freedom. There is more peace and a harmony that's available in us. And so this is being pointed to as the third noble truth, that possibility of, oh, if there is no continual fueling this wanting mind, there can be moments of harmony, peace with what I'm experiencing. Whether it's experiencing in our own hearts or what we feel in the surroundings that we're interacting with. And so that also becomes available to us. And we will also notice in this process is we lose our mindfulness, and it's not automatic that we are able to simply somehow stay with our experience in this direct, immediate way. And, we're losing to our stories, our beliefs, and we begin to notice, oh, this heart and mind is to be cultivated. And so yet another wholesome quality that can emerge, which is being pointed to as the fourth noble truth, is we give ourselves over to the practice. We offer ourselves to practice sincerely. And so in this way, what is being pointed to in this Four Noble Truths, each of this Four Noble Truths began to manifest themselves as wholesome qualities. Wholesome quality of being with our experience as they are, including the pain and the pleasure, difficulties, challenges. And that's a wholesome quality, and then pointed to as the first noble truth. And the wholesome quality of clarifying our lived experience, the first arrow versus the second arrow, the reactivities. And so we can begin to clarify this in ourselves. And the wholesome quality of possibility of having freedom and ease that's available to us when we're letting go of our clinging, insisting, demanding. And wholesome quality of giving ourselves to the sincere practice. Sometimes, I know some people would ask, if things ever get easier through the practice. I like that question, and I reflected about that question a lot. On one level, the conditions of our lives are often not under our control. It's hard to say how things might be getting easier or hard. Whether it's because of broader environment we're in, or because individual situations. In my household, there was a broader household, there was a car accident. Not easy. Very difficult for many people involved. But through this practice, what we're learning is to cultivate a kind of a capacity that allow us to relate to our lives and our life events, life situations with more and more, or in more and more wholesome ways that allow us to have a sense of ease, a sense of a harmony in the midst of difficulties. And so in that way, whether you call it easier or better, I don't know. But there is a possibility. There is a possibility. And this kind of a wholesome orientation is more and more independent of the life situations or the conditions that we're in. And this is what this teaching is pointing to. That how we relate to our lives is the empowerment that each of us has. And so as all of us connect to this teaching in some way, maybe in very moderate way, we just heard this, you just have a little sense of it. My invitation is to know what is called forth from this teaching is to let the teaching come alive. So it's real. We can have a real felt sense of it. And let that guide us in how we relate to our lives. So thank you everyone for your attention. We only have a few minutes, maybe just a short comment or a question. I'm happy to stay over after and respond in any way that I can. Anyone like to share a comment or share your own reflection or a question? Just a short one before we end.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I think one of the things I'm learning, and maybe you could speak to it, is that I'm not actually interested in freedom as much as wanting what I want, and then the path is like getting me to be more peaceful or more this or more that. Is that something that you've encountered yourself, this like, I don't actually want to be free, I want to be happy kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's good. I don't know what all the words might be, And so it might be worthwhile to turn that question around to see if this is if this is my aspiration, how am I relating to this aspiration? How does it manifest for me right now, if that's what's aspiring for me? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If there's another short one, or a short comment, there's one right here, yeah.
I really appreciated the piece about pleasant and unpleasant and how we think about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We have a lot of associations about pleasant, unpleasant, what it can mean to us. So this is a real worthy process in our practice, is to begin to tease that apart, kind of like what Sariputa is pointing to. It's like, oh, there is a pleasant and there's unpleasant. How do we associate with this? It's like immediately, I don't like this. I would rather it go away. Or I'm fearful. So we can begin to tease apart all of this. So it's great. Thank you. Yeah. So maybe we'll end with a dedication of merit together. And I really feel grateful for us to have this opportunity to practice together and to learn the Dharma practice and to learn the Dharma teachings together. I still feel that resonance of this first turning of the Dharma wheel. Kind of we're in this long stream. And then so may whatever benefits that arose out of our own practice and our own learning, may it ripple out in all directions. So all the beings everywhere, may they be benefited in some way. Maybe it's a kind of ease of the heart, clarity of the mind, or healthy, vital bodies. May they all be happy. May they all be peaceful And may we all, everyone, everywhere, experiencing liberating wisdom and compassion in our own hearts and minds, and everywhere for all beings. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.